Heard you did it first, I could do it better. If we talking bands, got a new vendetta. They don't want me in, they gon' have to let us. They gon' try to rock when it's Armageddon. They gon' take a lot when they hear the message. And they gon' wanna drop when they hear the sessions. I feel like I'm a god when I'm in your presence. I feel like I'm on top, I feel like I had it. City only rock that Givenchy. Got a new white bag and it coming full speed. And they see me at the top, now they really like me. Gotta move like that when you real icy. Cause it's way less friends than the haters. Way less ends when you make it. And it's really all in when you all in the...
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Blue Talk. Happy Wednesday. It is April 14th. I'm very excited to be with you guys today. Last 2 weeks ago, we had a show. Joe was there. We had a few other guests, and we really enjoyed our time. We're happy to follow up on that great show with another great show. This time, we have our guest Kieran with us. How you doing?
I'm excellent.
Awesome. So today we have a pretty interesting topic. We're going to talk about money, a little bit about finance today. Last week we spoke a bit about the trial of Derek Chauvin. Today we're going to talk a little bit about finance. So just to begin and to I apologize. I kind of messed up my whole flow. But just to begin our conversation, we really just wanted to talk about money. The first question I kind of wanted to start off just talking to you guys about is how your perception of Black finance has changed as you've gotten older. So one conversation I was having with my friend just a week ago, actually, she's a Black woman. She is about to graduate college, but we were talking about what we perceive the financial state of the Black community to be. Right. So I'm someone who grew up in Brooklyn. I grew up pretty middle class, and she grew up with a little bit more money, a little middle upper class. And I think our perceptions on Black finance and how much money families are supposed to make and what money can do, they were very different based on our experiences. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that today. Kieran, how you doing?
I'm excellent. That's a great topic of conversation. I'm Black. I consider myself to be middle class. I'm blessed to have come from a 2-parent household with business owners. So it's something that is rare. Yeah, business owners.
That's interesting. What did your parents do?
So my parents started in greeting cards and stationery in the city of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
They opened a shop together, my mother and father, called Sincerely Yours in 2 PPG Place. That store went through some trials and tribulations. It was the only store in downtown Pittsburgh that closed on the first Martin Luther King Day. Their store was subsequently padlocked, and they had to sue to get their store and their merchandise back. And thanks to the help of quite a few attorneys, both white and Black, my parents were able to get their store back, and they stayed there from the early 80s all the way until 2004, going through a lot of other trials and tribulations, having to go through dealing with a landlord that really tried to minimize their business and tried to, turn their business into a less successful business by placing, things like a gingerbread house right in front of my parents' store. So when we talk about Black wealth and Black finance and even creating Black businesses, there's so many impediments that Black business owners face, and it's a lot more than just can we get financing. In some cases, it's about even if you get the financing, if you go into a mall where your landlord is racist and you can't get access to the holidays that you observe, and you can't get off on those holidays, then you have a very serious problem, whether you be Muslim or Black just trying to observe, certain Black holidays, even like Juneteenth.
Definitely. That's interesting. So I think one thing, I think we all have a pretty fair view that there's a lot of obstacles to Black wealth. I think that's a pretty consensus thing that we can all wrap our heads around. I'm curious, as someone who grew up in a household with business owners and entrepreneurs, what are some of the pieces of knowledge that they gave you to kind of equip you to handle and deal with some of these obstacles?
So I learned about taxes. I learned about saving. I learned about a lot
Oh,
of different
okay.
taxes. Yeah, one of the things that my father always talked about was the fact that he had 11 different business partners when he owned a business,
Okay.
and most of them are the government. You got to pay FICA, you got to pay Social Security, you got to pay all these different taxes in order to take care of your employees.
Yeah.
So, when government raises taxes, I hate to sound like a Republican, but
Mhm.
when government raises taxes, it actually does cause a problem for small Black businesses. I'm a strong supporter of the minimum wage, as has my father and my mother have always paid above the minimum wage, right? So we've constantly focused on lifting wages in our community, but the more taxes that you impose on those wages, it goes to business owners as well. You really have to think about the fact that when we raise taxes, there are small business owners who would like to pay $15 an hour above the minimum wage here where I am in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
And you have people who are constantly trying to impose more taxes on wages being paid. And I think it's kind of counterintuitive sometimes. And
Okay.
especially when we start talking about Black business owners, people are operating on a tight margin as it is. Most Black businesses don't have enough money to pay 3 months worth of payroll if the business closes, right? And we saw this during coronavirus, right? You have businesses that knew immediately that if there are no customers for the next month, 2 months, we got to shut down. We got to
Yeah.
close. We got to lay off staff.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about small Black businesses, not chain restaurants, these people are operating on very tight margins, very slim profit margins, and I think we need to think about that when we're making state and federal policy, in regards to trying to foster Black business.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. So one thing kind of when we talk about small Black businesses, especially in the last year, they've been in large part decimated because of the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of people have been able to switch online and enter into e-commerce, but kind of as someone who has experience, again, with your parents owning a brick and mortar store, I'm sure you kind of empathize with the experiences of a lot of brick and mortar Black owned small businesses and what they've had to go through in 2020. So what do you think are some, maybe just like taking from your experience of your parents, like what are some things that you might advise them to do going through this time to like keep their heads up and stay afloat?
So for brick and mortar retail stores that aren't selling food, and my parents did sell food at one time. So for
Mhm.
brick and mortar retail stores, it's different. You can take pictures of your merchandise, you can post it on Facebook Marketplace, you can post it on Instagram, you can do a lot of different things if you have a small brick and mortar store, right? You can start fulfilling orders, and sending them out via UPS at a charge to the customer for the shipping, right? That's completely different
Mhm.
than dealing with a restaurant. Um, my father actually opened a diner at one point that sold small gifts. His concept was to put a less racist Cracker Barrel in our neighborhood, and it was completely not racist
Okay.
because it was owned by a Black person. But they had gifts, they had knickknacks, they had candy. But at the same time, you can get a hot breakfast, you can get a lunch order, you can come through
Yeah.
at dinner time and get a catfish sandwich. So when we're
Yeah.
talking about restaurants, you have to focus on expanding your audience, getting into DoorDash, changing from what you might have been serving to stuff that reheats better when things get home. Also, adding reheating instructions to your products are simple ways to increase the amount of orders that you get. If somebody gets a cold meal and you say, "Oh, well, just heat your oven up to 350, throw it in there for 10 minutes, and it should be just as good as you would have it in the restaurant,"
Yeah.
then a lot of people will order it. But if I'm getting a burger and fries from McDonald's and it gets there cold, throwing it in the microwave ain't really gonna make it any better. It's just gonna make it hard. So
Yeah.
when you're talking about dealing with fresh food, you need to get fresh food to customers fast. And if it's not hot when it gets there, you need to tell your customers how they can reheat it in the best way possible.
Definitely. Definitely. Those are really good innovative strategies. I think one of the things that the COVID-19 pandemic has really pointed out. You even mentioned it, saying a lot of businesses don't have up to 3 months in savings. One of I don't know if this is Adam Smith. I don't know who this is, but one of the major economists says that the pillars of basically economics are land, labor, and capital. Probably Karl Marx. Probably where I got that from. Long story short, I think one impediment a lot of small businesses run into is lack of access to capital. A lot of small businesses are forced to find innovative solutions, adjust to e-commerce, give instructions on heating up the food because they don't necessarily have the capital to take losses or the capital to just do a bunch of things. They're on tight margins. So my question to you is, how do you think as a community we should address the capital issue that a lot of our Black businesses have, especially as it relates to your conversation about taxes? Because I think one thing that's super hard, I would imagine, about being a Black owned business owner is probably that strain between not having access to capital and not wanting to rely on the government and loans to help you get it.
So
So
the way
yeah.
There's a couple of ways that I think you can solve this problem, right? Is banking smaller, right? So the one thing that I learned from my father is you do not just bank with one bank. So when I came up, studying my father's businesses, watching him do business just at his feet, I realized that he had about 10 different banks that he would go to, and he had accounts there. And you have an account, you keep money there so that you can get a line of credit. If a bank knows you have a certain amount of money in an account, they're more likely to give you a line of credit. If you've been banking with them for several years, they're more likely to give a longtime customer a break than they are to give somebody who just walked in the door a break. So banking with multiple banks, banking smaller, meaning going to smaller regional banks and using credit unions as well. And also banking Black. I think of banks like Industrial in the Washington, D.C. area, and banking with credit and banking with credit unions as well, especially Black credit unions, I think are a great way to go for small business owners. I really do think you have to look and think outside of the Wells Fargos, the Capital Ones and businesses like that, and move towards some of the smaller businesses who might be more interested in even having your business.
That's very interesting. That's really, really good advice. I like that. That's fire. So kind of switching from the business side of things, just in case people watching aren't business owners. You seem to be pretty well off. I see all the books you have. You have a nice suit on. So I'm curious, kind of just reflecting a lot of. Oh, Joe's coming back on. Hello, Joe. How you doing?
I'm pretty good, y'all. I thought the conversation was turning a little bit, so I wanted to get involved as well.
Appreciate that. So we're gonna kind of go. We were just talking about a little bit about business finance and small businesses. I kind of want to talk about personal finance a little bit. I don't know if there's any young people on the video right now just watching, but I'm curious, just from both of your experiences, what are some financial decisions you feel like you made early on in your life that contributed to your financial success? And what are some decisions you wish you might have not made?
So I'm gonna add real quick to your earlier point about wealth and having access to knowledge. Yes, I do consider myself as a middle class Black person to be relatively wealthy for our community, but compared to white wealth, my parents do not have nearly as much as some of the white people that even went to the schools that they were able to afford for me to go to. I think of some of the people that I went to school with. One of who I played basketball with was deputy chief of staff to Ben Carson. His family owns a large amount of property in Western Pennsylvania. So there's a lot of the ideas that we have about Black wealth. And we need to think about those ideas in relation to how much wealth white people actually have. I'm sitting in a house right now that, yes, I have a home office, but at the same time, my house isn't worth more than $250,000. So you have to deal with the fact that you might have a big home, but it's in a Black community, so it's devalued by banks. It's devalued by your local government. Even though my neighborhood is ranked 10th in the city of Pittsburgh, where I'm from, it still doesn't have the same value as other neighborhoods that are 95% white. Because this neighborhood is actually the only interracial, a mixed race community, middle class community. That's really what we're talking about. Is I live in a mixed race middle class community where the redlining of communities is really apparent. So I live in a neighborhood that's split by Stanton Avenue. Stanton Avenue on one side is 60% white and 40% Black. On the other side, it's 60%. So I'm sorry, on one side where the school is 60% white and 40% Black. On the other side, the non-schoolhouse side, which was on the other side of the red line, it's 60% Black and 40% white.
Yeah.
So when you start talking about, how Black homes are looked at, and how Black wealth is attained, it's through home ownership. But if you live in an area where there are too many Black people concentrated, the bank devalues your neighborhood. So I'm sorry?
So what's the fix to that? Because what I hear the fix is you got to move to white neighborhoods to get a valuable house. That's what I hear. So that's why I'm asking.
I don't. And see, I don't believe in that. I actually believe in what my dad did in finding a neighborhood, not moving to the suburbs. So when my father moved to the neighborhood that we currently live in, it was 90% white. He bought a house just on the other side of the red line and waited for the trends to change. And now our neighborhood has more Black people in it than white people. So what I will say to Black people is there are, in a lot of cases, in a lot of spaces, when I travel around the country, there are neighborhoods immediately adjacent to Black people that are valued just slightly more than our communities because they have a higher density of white people. Buy a house.
I think we have to hashtag adjacent to Black people.
Listen, everything adjacent to Black people is way more valuable. You ever wonder how gentrification starts? White communities adjacent to Black communities are valued at a higher level. So the white people who can't afford to live in that said white community, right, start to look around and go, well, where can we go that's close to that? Where can we go, to find something cheap and maybe wait for the property values to rise? And that's how they end up buying homes in Black communities. I've seen it all across the country. They do the opposite thing of what we do. They look on the other side of the red line and see devalued homes, right, and buy those devalued homes.
But I think that kind of goes back to the capital conversation we were having before. So I don't know if you were on the call, Joe, but I feel like a lot of the problems Black small businesses run into, even when you talk about Black home ownership, a major part of the problem is we don't have access to capital. If we just had 10K, 20K, 50K to just throw on these things, it would be a different story, but we don't. So how do you – that Maceo,
What's up, Maceo? Welcome to Blue.
What's up, Maceo?
Maceo.
We're good. We're good.
I don't know if you get that reference, Maceo, but go and get my cake.
Wait, say that again, please. Can you repeat that for me?
Get my cake.
Yeah, James Brown.
But Joe, I didn't mean to cut you off. I know you were about to say something.
Nah, I was just gonna welcome Maceo. I'm enjoying hearing what you guys are kind of talking about. I'm curious about what the solution to this problem is too. I understand what the problem is, and I understand it's like in every state is, but I don't understand what the solution to it is, because it seems like when Black folks move into these communities, it has an effect, right? So I know we're cool by association, and I think every city needs a Black workforce, right? So there's always a ghetto somewhere near an economic center, right? But I don't know how we reverse those things, because so much of our society, without making huge systemic changes in how our entire economy works, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's really cool to talk about this as a practical problem, but until we reconstruct how the financial system in a capitalist country is built, then we're just talking about our problems and our feelings. Like, so
I agree with Joe. So Joe, do you think that the suggestion or the solution is anti-capitalism, socialism? Is it Marxism? I mean,
I don't know. See, I think that's a trap, right? So I think the ism trap is where they want us to be, right? I think the best solution is the best solution, right? And it may not be one that has already been conceived, right? Man, that is probably most likely due to the fact that we are in new experiences. This is a post 9/11 era. Now this is a post COVID era. Now this is a post, so many historical things have happened, right? So when we talk about reimagining what a country should be, like, it doesn't have to be based or rooted in something that we've seen before. It can be a complete reimagining. And so, like, I'm saying that I don't have the solution, right? But I'm saying that I'm not also going down the trap where I'm like, yes, it has to be a socialist solution, or yes, it has to be a communist solution, because I honestly believe that all of them have failed principles interwoven in between them. So I feel like there's some truth also woven in between them too, and maybe that's where we should start.
And can't none of us sit here and say capitalism has really worked that well for Black people? It's worked that well for some. It's worked well for some of us.
It makes us work well.
I do want to say something.
Go ahead.
So what I want to say is, I want to say that, I see this. So y'all arguing capitalism, and I'm not sure if y'all touched up on like redlining and the federal government, destroying Black economic power and Black economic concentrated wealth. So my whole thing is, in 1776, when Adam Smith wrote Wealth of Nations, he was writing it against the British Crown. So he was talking about unregulated capitalism to break what the British Crown had on the economy at the time. So I feel that if we were to talk about unregulated capitalism, more or less it will be against the American government and how they have held Black people back. I don't think it's a capitalist question. I believe it's the restraint on Black people in the laws that has been made in the financial sector. That's what I believe.
So
kind of
to get
on that restraint, I was actually just talking to my boy about this. I think that I was born in 1998, right?
Oh, nice.
I think the time I was born.
Oh Jesus, bro! Hold on, time out. We're not just gonna blow past that. 1998.
Yeah,
come on, man. You can't. You don't remember the Y2K or nothing? I was born in 92.
Boxers I had when I was 8.
Wait, you was born when? When was you born?
98.
No, you. Yeah.
I was born in 92.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Y2K. I got shirts that are older than you.
Let me get out this without you.
I remember.
We were talking about it.
You shouldn't tell people that, bro. It'll derail the conversation. I thought you was like 32.
Word.
I mean, but I think the enlightening part, or the cool thing about that is he's woke.
Not yet.
Economically woke to be having been born, almost in 2000.
So,
but the thing I was talking about basically is that I feel like in my lifetime as a Black man, I'm 22 now. I feel like I was born at a time when there might have been one or two African American billionaires, but I feel like I've gotten to see people like Jay-Z, like Diddy, like Dre, like Kanye, like LeBron. Like I've got to see not even like the billionaire examples, but I feel like I've gotten to grow up with a different level of Black success, at least in pop culture, especially financially, than my parents did. So I'm curious, like, if you guys have a perspective on, like, in your lifetime, what progress we have made. And I think it might be important to, like, weave that back into our capitalism conversations, because some would argue that you see people like Dre, it's working.
One thing I do want to say is there's a difference between capitalism and crony capitalism. And I believe Jay-Z and Dr. Dre's product crony capitalism, because capitalism is about compacted, factors over time. If Dre kept beats and not have sold it, he would have made more money. But because he wanted the quick dollar and he wanted the recognition with Apple, you know what I'm saying? And Jay-Z, he sold out a lot of different people instead of compounding. If you said Dame Dash, I feel like that would be a better.
Yo, Maceo, I'm gonna let you
example.
finish, but my Apple beats are much better. They are much better than my first generation beats.
But
So,
that's consumerism, though. You feel me?
it's money that was invested into making this design better and having lasted over, like, these beats right here. These beats are 8 years old now, man, and I respect that, because my first pair of beats only lasted a year and a half. So
but you're talking about the product. I'm talking about the business model. You feel me? But going back to crony capitalism, you feel me? Crony capitalism is the reason why the dollar isn't as powerful as it is.
Can you define crony capitalism for our guests at home, just so they can separate it from regular?
Crony capitalism is when the government or economic actors either sell their companies for less than what it is, or the government hands over excessive amount of money.
You're overlooking one big part of crony capitalism, is that there's something else that they're going to give you down the line. The only reason to sell lower than what you would have or what you might have thought it was worth is because somebody else told you, yo, we got this for you over here. We'll get you in on the ground floor of this. And then you realize at that point, oh, wow, might be insider trading, but hey, oh, wow, I can take $1 million and buy, 500,000 shares of a stock at $2 a share, and I know it's about to go through the roof. If you had known that GameStop was going to go from like $2 all the way up to 450, and you had $1 million to spend at the time, would you have not bought GameStop?
Facts, but
that's all crony capitalism.
I was going in two directions with that. I was going in the political economic structure where example, people build businesses only for government to fund it, like for-profit businesses, like what you call it, solar panels. There's companies that got solar panels and got the government to buy the solar panels, but the solar panels wasn't worth nothing. You feel me? Because solar panels won't really help the consumer until like
I gotta stop you, Maceo. I'm gonna speak to that point, and then I'm gonna start on another point. That is a product of the fact that banks will give people loans to do business with the government. The government is the easiest person, or easiest vendor or entity that you can do business with. If you have a government contract, you can walk into a bank and get financing, no problem, because the bank knows right as rain that you're gonna get that money. Now, I wanted to also push on a point that you had said earlier about talking about redlining, and we had talked about it briefly before you had hopped on, and I had made some comments that might have been construed as you should buy homes in white neighborhoods. I'm not saying don't buy homes in black neighborhoods. I'm saying that in order to build wealth and in order to build equity in your home, right, it doesn't necessarily benefit black people to only own property in black neighborhoods.
That's a fact.
So if you can find a house that you can purchase in a white neighborhood and sit on it for a few years, you will more than likely recoup your investment plus. Property is some of the safest safest stuff to invest in. So I think that, you know, when we talk about redlining, yes, redlining devalues communities, and we all know that. But in order to avoid that type of devaluation, you can buy a home in a 90% white community, sit on it for 10 years and sell it.
Or rent it out.
Yes, but depending on where you are, there may be laws against you renting out certain homes. I know in certain cities that I've been in the Northeast, deeds are restricted, and in some cases, zoning laws prohibit renting whole homes, and that's in order. Those things that are done in order to maintain the quote unquote integrity of a neighborhood. But we all know what that really means. They don't want a certain type of people being able to rent a home in this neighborhood and not have any skin in the game, any value, any equity. So that's those are all factors, and Black people need to understand all the factors when buying property and when investing.
Definitely.
Perfectly.
Definitely. Those are really, really good points. We are running up on time for our show, so I'm going to ask one last question to just close it out. We've spoken a lot about the systemic barriers, the systemic opportunities that kind of Black wealth sees, and it's just day to day. Kind of wanted to talk about what you feel like our moral responsibility, our responsibility to each other is. Um, yes, we have the banks. Yes, we have the government. Yes, we have these private companies. But I'm curious if you guys think there's any obligation as an individual Black man to give money, give your time, give your resources, and kind of invest in Black businesses, invest in Black communities. To what extent do you think that's your responsibility? And to what extent do you think it's all of our responsibilities? And what should that responsibility look like? All those three questions.
I'll go first on this. Not only do I donate to Black organizations like Black Voters Matter, which is right over my shoulder. I love the Black Voters Matter Fund and the things that they're doing, investing in Black communities and investing in Black organizations. But I also invest in small Black businesses around the country. As I travel, I make sure to stop at, you know, your local mom and pop business. I love Burns Barbecue in Houston, Texas. There's nothing I love more than Dookie Chase in New Orleans, Louisiana. You can travel around the country and hit small Black businesses instead of going to chain restaurants. That's something that I do. I also like to support Black-led organizations with my small dollar donations. And I also like to support Black candidates for public office around the country. If you see a candidate running, no matter if they can do anything for you or not, if you chip in $5 a month for a few months, that's helpful. Those type of things help us build Black power, build Black wealth. We need to support Black organizations, Black candidates for public office, and we also need to support Black businesses. So that's my TED Talk for today, and I'm gonna leave y'all on that one.
Yeah, we all I think we're all gonna say the same thing. But I think we're all kind of differ off and say that I do think people have the right in a free country to choose how they spend their money, right? And that can be leveraged in a form of power, but it's also just our ultimate, in this country only, it's our ultimate expression of freedom and almost nothing else. So I would say that's the only other thing. As far as charitable donations go, you should send charitable donations to organizations like Blue Star Carolinas, like Black Voters Matter Fund, not like Black Lives Matter, not like fake Antifa that doesn't exist. In fact, both of those organizations don't really exist. They're just ideologies, right? So I would say do your research, learn where the money is being spent to support Blue Talk down there, right? You know, learn how money is being spent at that place. You like something that's going on there, support it. You see four brothers talking about politics and it's entertaining you, throw a couple dollars at continuing to see us care about politics and be engaged. You know, I'm talking to you at home right now, but I'm just saying, yeah, all those things are very, very important. I don't think we're going to disagree on this one, y'all, but I'm going to check out.
Definitely. Maceo, you have any thoughts?
So one thing I want to say is, my grandparents came from the Nation of Islam. So Elijah Muhammad, preached, good home for black people, to uh, empower the community by hiring in the community and giving other people jobs who, own homes and the money goes. I have worked in politics for, 20 years, whatever. Like, intern, I was brought in as active. I've met other black people who said that some black people don't do the job. Everybody, has the best product. Is their right to do. Uh, but I feel that that regards.
I'm having a bit of trouble hearing you, Michelle.
Sorry, you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you better now.
Great, great. So I was saying that, black people are all like the only people, that don't support their people, good or bad, and other people will support, their people, right or wrong, good or bad. So I feel that we need those of us that want to participate, with each other need to sit back and look at, how others are treating us and how we are treating ourselves, and see that if we want to move the black race forward, then yes, buy black, and support black people, not just with money but with education. If you have a skill, or if you have advice or whatever, you can teach and talk as well as give money. But most times people only think that they can only give money. Advice, skin capital works too, like on the campaign, which I'm working on right now. If you can knock doors, make phone calls, whatever, that helps as well. So every little thing helps. And, me personally, I buy black, and I, encourage people to buy black, but, in this realm of politics where different people have different feelings or ideologies, or some people even hate themselves. They hate the fact that they're black. They have barriers, and they hate the fact that these barriers are put on them because they have darker skin or black or whatever the case may be. So my whole thing is, I feel that we need more black therapists, and we need more black social workers, because this is hitting home hard, and everybody is taking it differently, because self-hate can be the lady that sat across from me, I think it was 5 years ago, and she was like, yeah, black businesses this, black businesses that, but you're at a black political candidate running for office, and you're saying all this about black businesses. Do you hate yourself? So I think that we need to bring that into the conversation and take that into account too, because all of this is relevant, but how someone views himself and how someone views the same person that has the same skin color as them, and feels the type of way, I feel that that is something that plays a part in the economic cycle more than just your dollars.
That's huge. That's huge. That was a great way to cap it off. So I think, just inspired by that question, my closing question for each of you, just a 10-second response, would be, what does blackness mean to you? That would be my question. So Joe, you could start. What does blackness mean to you? How would you define it?
The absence of light. I don't know. I don't like playing the color game. So I'm muted.
So what do you mean by that?
Like I know that I'm like, I don't know. Macio's comment hit me because I don't know if I hate myself because I'm black. I did relate to the fact that you said that some people feel like the outside external influences, they can feel that pressure and hate those influences. And I think that's very true. But I think for like the majority of my life, I didn't really see color. And it was only like living longer that made me like see color in the way that I see it now. So like I'm not sure even now that the world wants me to think that color is that important, that I still even think that it truly defines people's character or really even says much more than just like
That's interesting.
I don't so it's hard for me to so that's what it means to me. Am I proud of being black? Yeah, 100%. Am I ashamed of being black? Definitely not. But is it something that I feel like defines me? My identity is not founded in my blackness or my sexual orientation. I just feel like I'm more than like all those things. So that's it.
That's respect. That's respect. That's respect. Would you mind me asking? You said there are experiences that happened in your life that made you look at your blackness differently. Would you mind like talking about one of those experiences? I'm just like curious about what did you mean by
Well,
that?
yeah. So I went to a middle school that was almost the majority black, right? So I barely even noticed any difference, right? There were a couple white kids, like point them out, like less than 10%, maybe less than 5, right? And then when I went to high school, it was like 70-30. And then like even the black students that were like from the city were very different from the black kids I knew from the country where I was from, right? So it was just, I think that was like eye-opening for me because people at that school started to treat me like they had treated all their, the people that they had known and grown up with or whatever. But like I could feel that difference, and it
Yeah.
became like more, I guess, just apparent to me. It wasn't like shocking or shattering. It didn't like I wasn't traumatized, but I noticed. I felt it.
I feel that. I feel that. So Maceo, I'll hit you with the question. What does blackness mean to you?
Well, I can only answer that as an African American because like none of my family are from like the Caribbean islands. So what blackness means to me is, denied history, stolen goods. Yeah, that's it. Like we were stolen from Africa. We were denied our greatness. We were denied that, we were the best race. That's not racist. That's true. Everything scientifically, every race come from us, and our genes are the strongest. So we were denied our greatness. We were denied our history, and we're still being denied. To even be human. So this is the biggest deception game the world have ever seen. Stealing your teacher, having kids by your teacher, and then telling them that they're less than when they taught you to begin with. So this is the best deception story in history. And if you wrote a book about it and you change black and white to something else, it will be eye opening.
That's interesting. Okay. And Kieran, what does it mean to you?
So what it means to me to be black is part oppression, but the oppression is so that we don't realize our own power. Right? There's true strength in our numbers. If we rise up and work together instead of being divided, we can overcome our oppressor. So coming together in order to take over city councils, coming together in order to take over, legislatures, governors' mansions, things like that, rising up as a community in collective power, to try to create the change that we need to see inside of the political infrastructure so that we can dismantle institutional racism. They've been oppressing us because they know we got the power. And since we do have the power, what we need to do is organize and fight to overcome the oppression. And I believe it's within reach.
That's real. That's real. I think for me, I think I correlate blackness with power, with strength, and with potential. I think that like we definitely have a very long history as black people. There are so many of us across the world. I don't know if this is statistically true, but I truly feel like we are the global majority. I think that Black people, Black causes, Black interests, Black ideas, Black fashion, Black music, Black art, Black politics, Black economics, Black medicine, I truly believe that all of those things have the potential to be the best. And I truly believe they all will be one day. So hopefully I live long enough to see it. I know I got 6 years on all of y'all, so maybe that'll play out. but I appreciate all of y'all for
I do want to say one thing though.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's my birthday, so you have 6 years. I have 6 years on you tomorrow.
I love that. Happy birthday! Happy birthday! You have any good plans?
Happy birthday.
I don't know yet. Right now, I'm actually looking at my real estate course right now because this has inspired me and uplifted me to get back on my real estate game and whatnot. Oh, Black accountants, yes, facts.
Shout out to
Bernard
Black
Patterson.
accountants.
Shout out to Bernard Patterson. And
Don't call
whatnot.
Kieran for birthday suggestions.
Hey, Black. Oh, what'd you say?
I said, don't call Kieran for birthday suggestions.
Hey, listen, man. When we were in Atlanta, I told you what the party move was, and everybody tried to shut it down when we was at the convention.
All right, y'all. So this is going to be the end of our call today.
Thank you so much. Thank y'all so much.
Hey, Black accountants, shout out Black accountants, Black doctors, Black medical professionals, especially. We need Black people in all those spaces.
Yes.
Black therapists and Black social workers too, because they're over subscribing medicine to all boys and girls in school and everything, and we need to fight that as well.
Yes, we do.
Heard you did it first, I could do it better. If we talking bands, got a new vendetta. They don't want me in, they gon' have to let us.
Hey, are we out?
When it's time to get it. They gon' take a lot when they hear the message. And they gon' wanna try when they hear the sessions. I feel like I'm a god when I'm in your presence. I feel like I'm on top, I feel like I had it. City only rock that Givenchy. Got a new white bag and it's coming full speed. And they see me at the top, now they really like me. Gotta move like that when you're real icy. Cause there's way less friends in the